Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Aquarian Anarchy. Our quote for tonight is from H.L. Mencken. The most dangerous man to any government is the man who is able to think things out for himself without regard to the prevailing superstitions and taboos. Almost inevitably, he comes to the conclusion that the government he lives under is dishonest, insane, and intolerable. And with that, we are pleased to welcome the one and only, the naturalist, capitalist, ReedCoverdale. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, I wanted you to make sure you felt at home. I've seen you do a few shows with like the high vis vest on and everything.
Oh yeah,
and
it doesn't work with the green screen very well. So
you got to wear.
No, that's right. I had to stop using that, but
for sure. The you got to have your PPE though to come on this show. Like you got to have. And have you chocked your wheels before we get started? I just want to make sure we don't roll off into the.
Well, is this an MSHA site? Because then I gotta also wheel chalk the Bobcat and the bulldozer and everything. So
right, no shit, right. So anyway, we appreciate you coming on. It's kind of an interesting time to have. I don't know that we necessarily planned it this way, but this just seems to always happen when we do our shows, where like we go to invite somebody on and like some shit happens. Like we had Ford Fisher on when he like uncovered the feds at the rally and stuff. So it's like it just so happens there's a massive like convoy of truckers all over the world converging on different capitals in protest. What are you seeing? What's kind of coming through your channels and everything in regard to that?
Yeah, so a lot of my friends are talking about. Obviously, I really only know much about the one in Canada. I don't know. I've seen some stuff about it. What was it? What was the other country that just started doing it? Like Sweden or something? Or
there are a bunch actually. I sent the link. So here's I'm going to try to scroll down and find it. All right. So there are convoys in Canada, sort of the U.S., but it's more like people supporting the Canadian one. But Australia, Europe, Finland, the Netherlands, Czechoslovakia, Belgium, France, Italy, Spain, Hungary, Portugal, Romania. Anyway, you can see I could go on quite a bit. There are a bunch. And not as many are getting as much publicity as the one in Canada. And I do have we have some fair use live footage that we would like to show the audience from Justin Trudeau's office.
Look, son, it's one of nature's most beautiful sights, the convoy.
Whoa! Whoa! Oh no! They're coming in through the back door!
You see, The Simpsons called it again. Justin Trudeau is in hiding right now to try to get away from this. I'm going to go ahead and take the hard hat off because it's. I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, I knew you were going to struggle with that.
What's that?
I knew you were going to struggle with that.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, but well, so I don't know. I guess I'll let Marcus and Nicco dive in. I know they had some stuff they wanted to ask too about around that the trucking convoys and everything. So
how has your work affected like non-truckers, individuals?
How has it affected non-truckers?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
As in like,
I think he's talking about your activism and how like, are you seeing people like seeing the trucker in you coming out for freedom, and have you seen like other people reacting to that?
Yeah, I mean, so like just with non-truck drivers, you mean? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, most of my audience isn't truck drivers. I'd say. I mean, I definitely have some, but I connect with a lot of blue collar workers mostly, and then some white collar people who kind of wish blue collar, I think. Because it's see videos of me hauling big machinery up to Montana or whatever. They kind of wish they were involved. But yeah, I think the working class is my main target, and they like me because I'm not just sitting in an office somewhere. Like I actually do the same things that they do, and I understand how the trades work and things like that. And I can actually relate where the government has destroyed small businesses through regulations or lockdowns, or where they've made it easier for big businesses to survive by, making the stifling competition by creating regulations that don't hurt the big businesses, but they absolutely crush the small businesses. So I've been able to, connect with a lot of people in that way, I think.
Awesome. Yeah. What's funny is I like Chad watched the truck. Although I watched it today, I watched the trucker thing you did. And one of the things you talked about was the way that that one of the things that kind of leads you to libertarianism and those kinds of ideas is the regulations and all of that on your back. And I have a background in funeral service, and there's probably the only industry I can think of that is more regulated than the funeral industry is probably the pot industry, because they assume just because a funeral director has all of these cars, this big house, all of that stuff, that they have a shit ton of money, and they don't have a shit ton of money. And so I think that the government comes down, and I that wasn't really what the beginning of my personal path towards liberty was, but I think it certainly impacted it. Was economics kind of where you started your journey, or was there other things that kind of, because I know that didn't you support Tulsi Gabbard and move towards the Mises Caucus? Am I right about that?
Yeah, but I supported Rand Paul in 2016. So
okay,
it didn't start with Tulsi. Tulsi was just kind of a pragmatic decision in the middle, because there was nothing. I mean, 2020 was terrible. We didn't have anybody good. Or 2019 more. She dropped out earlier in 2020. But I used to be like a neocon in high school, like when I got out of high school. And I started working right out of high school, and I did instantly realize that centralized top-down command structures did not work well in the workforce. What worked best is if everybody knew how to do his own job and was just left to his own devices to get it done. And then if you needed help, you just say, hey, I need this or I need this or whatever. Whenever you'd have a boss who would come in and try to micromanage and tell every single person what to do, things would just get complicated and fall apart, and it wouldn't work as well. And then I really noticed with environmental regulations that they were actually hurting the environment. And what I did more than they were protecting it, I was working on power lines, and we went to swamps. And the dumbest thing was we had to bring these big wooden mats in with us that we'd lay out in the swamp, so we wouldn't destroy the wetlands or whatever. But we'd bring sometimes hundreds of these things in, and
put tons on it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there would be a swamp that's so wet that you would need these mats to get machinery through the swamp without sinking. But they expanded the definition of a swamp so much that it would be like, if you see, some type of plant within 100 feet of where you're working, it's suddenly a wetland. So you'd have, sometimes we have to do miles of the right of way with mats when you're going through grass or just like plain dirt or whatever. And so all the fuel to bring all those mats out there, and then they're 16 feet wide. So you got this 16-foot wide path sitting there for a few weeks. It kills everything that's under the mat. So instead of just like the tracks from whatever machine you have, you just have this 16-foot wide swath of death, all the way through.
Right. Sure. You're actually destroying the environment while you're doing it.
Yeah. So like that just kind of started making me realize, if they're this bad at this level, they're probably bad all the way up, through the military, through the intelligence agencies. I mean, why would it be any better? And then in, 2014 or 2015, I left New Hampshire and traveled to all 50 states. And I did roofing in Colorado for about 6 months, and I was working with a bunch of Mexican immigrants. And I had this completely right-wing view of immigration that we needed to deport everybody and maybe build a wall and, all this stuff. And then I started realizing, oh, wait, hold on. This guy's been here for 15 years. He has a kid who's going to school. He has an American wife. and he's technically illegal because he came here the wrong way 15 years ago and hasn't come completely out of the shadows. So I want to deport this guy. I want to break his door down and kick him out and break his family in half. You know, so just everything was obviously more complicated. And then I started thinking about the warfare state in like 2015. And that's when I really got interested in Rand Paul. And I was a big supporter of his presidential campaign. And then obviously that didn't go anywhere. And then I voted for Gary Johnson in 2016, also didn't go anywhere. And I wasn't even going to vote in 2020 for president. And then I found Tulsi Gabbard, and she was great on the war in Syria. And she was great on Saudi Arabia and the genocide in Yemen. And she was also really good on like the Patriot Act, Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, protecting whistleblowers. You know, we didn't see eye to eye on economics or gun control, but frankly, I didn't see eye to eye with Trump on those issues either. So it was like, all right, whatever. So I campaigned for her in New Hampshire because I was living back in New Hampshire again at this time. And that kind of red pilled me, just seeing how she was treated by the Democrat Party with the polling and the debates and everything. I mean, they were so horrible to her. And then, you know, after
she was trending like #1 for like a minute, and then they just muted her as a trending topic.
They shut her website down. Google took her website down during both the debates because she was the most popular or the most Googled candidate. But anyway, like, it was a wild campaign. She did, you know, I was on it, I think, from September until February when the primary was in New Hampshire. And, you know, that Queen of Warmongers thing with Hillary Clinton happened while I was on the campaign, and that was pretty exciting. And then, you know, it was really interesting. But then, like, helping with that campaign and, you know, how against the machine she was going the whole time, then to have her endorse Biden at the end just was like, oh God.
Right.
So then I was like, all right, I got to get involved in the Libertarian Party because I hadn't really been involved in it in 2016. I just voted for Gary Johnson. So in 2020, I joined the Utah Libertarian Party because I'm living out here. And then kind of went down that rabbit hole, and then eventually ended up becoming friends with Dave Smith, and that kind of launched me more toward the Mises Caucus. I felt like a lot of people misunderstand where I was coming from with the Mises Caucus. So I joined, like, I came into the Libertarian Party, and Jacob Hornberger was the guy for the Mises Caucus. And I liked him at first. Like, I saw what he stood for, and I was like, okay, this is all great. And then I watched him in the debates, and he was just vicious and mean and, you know, kind of ridiculous, I thought. And then he was doing like these.
We saw that.
Remember those like Justin Amash Libertarian Interloper series he made?
Right.
Like, make these videos just calling Justin Amash a socialist. I was like, you're calling Justin Amash a socialist? So I was like, this is not what I want. Especially like the #1 issue he had was like getting rid of Medicare and Medicaid. And it's like, dude, there's like, that's the #1 thing you're going to push when we're entering a pandemic that we don't know anything about. Like, how about getting rid of corporate subsidies and bailouts and, you know, that type of
bigger
stuff?
fish to fry.
Yeah. So I really did not like him. And I just kind of assumed that was what the Mises Caucus was about. But then, you know, I became friends with Dave and Scott Horton and people like that. And then I realized, like, oh no, this is actually, these guys, it's kind of funny. Like, I think the Mises Caucus is actually more pragmatic than the Prag Caucus, because that's for sure. Pragmatic is not the right word that people use to describe someone.
Sell out.
They're the milk toast. They're the milk toast caucus, is what they are.
Yeah,
they're not pragmatic at all.
Yeah, they're moderate and they're milk toast. Like, pragmatism.
I like to call them feds.
Yeah, exactly. Pragmatism is choosing the important issues to focus on and realizing what battles you want to fight, which transgender sports is not exactly the battle I want to be fighting right now. You know, like, I don't give a shit about that. And Mises Caucus really cares about monetary policy, ending the wars, ending the war on drugs, ending the national security state, and then like the fringe issues. You know, who cares? Like, you can kind of basically think whatever you want. So I joined the Mises Caucus, I think last June or something. Whenever the bullshit with the New Hampshire Libertarian Party happened,
Right,
like
right.
the straw that broke the camel's back. I was like, all right,
Mhm.
fuck you guys, like you suck. I'm joining the Mises Caucus. So.
I love
Yeah.
it.
So to give you a little bit of a background that you may not be aware of, both Nicco comes to us from Hotep Nation. He's
Mhm.
quite a bit of an anarchist himself. I was the press secretary for Adam Kokesh, and frankly still am, for 4 years. Adam's one of my best friends. Chad worked for Chad as basically a creative
For
director.
Adam. Yeah. I work for me too. Sometimes.
Sorry, for Adam.
Yeah.
For Chad worked for Adam for basically as a creative director as well. So I where I came with Mises is personally is like I really loved him right out of the gate, and then once I'm with you. Once Hornberger kind of became their guy, they became dicks, and I was like, okay. Fuck you. Adam's, how can you ignore Adam Kokesh, who is certainly, preaching Rothbard's, gospel if he's not preaching Mises? And how can you ignore him? So it pissed me off. But people like Dave and I like we just had Michael Heiss on.
Michael Heiss was on last week with us. Yeah, and it was awesome. Yeah.
And so I like a lot of those of the people, and I gotta give a shout out to Spike Cohen too. And
I love Spike.
Yeah, so that kind of brought me the only way, because my involvement with the Libertarian Party and watching them put somebody who was going to be an abysmal failure as a presidential candidate in the presidential candidate position,
and she
really
was.
And she was, and that disillusioned
when they told her to leave the debates, she was like, "All right, we'll leave."
Right, and told Adam no when Adam's like, "I can get you in these debates."
Yeah, I remember saying that on Twitter.
Yeah, so ultimately, the Mises Caucus and people like you, frankly, are the kind of people. I'm an anarchist. I don't believe in government. I don't believe we're going to get there through the ballot box. But I think a strong libertarian party is important. And the reason is because I wouldn't be here right now believing that government is nothing but a bunch of criminals had I not taken a journey through the Libertarian Party. So I think it is people like you that that kind of pave the way for people to see freedom. Often people like me who are just I'm an absolutist. Really, I'm friendly and I welcome everybody, but but intellectually I'm an absolutist. I don't believe in any of this shit. But I think people like you are needed, and so if the Mises Caucus manages to get some control of the Libertarian Party, they don't have to be the number one, they don't have to be massive, but I'd like to see them about the level that the Radical Caucus is. If that were to happen, I'd be involved. What is your prediction? Because you're relatively new to the party as well, because Adam brought me into the party. What do you see the future for Mises and the Libertarian Party looking like?
Well, I think as I termed them, the bitch fuck cucks, those are the prags, and I do draw a distinction. Like, I don't think of Justin Amash as a disgusting prag. Like, I think he's all right. He's just kind of boring, but I mean, he's fine. But I'm talking about like Nick Sarwark or Ashley Shade or people like that.
Andy Craig,
yeah, they absolutely suck. And I tried with them. Like, it's not like I just wrote them off immediately. I tried. There was this whole thing at the beginning of last year where Dave and us were trying to like say, hey, everyone, all this stupid bullshit that's happened, whatever, like, let's just put it behind us and let's move forward. And it was very obvious you didn't want to put it behind, wanted to keep going. So those people can go fuck themselves. I can swear on here, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fuck the censors.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. I think that faction of the party's losing. I mean, after what they did in New Hampshire, what they did in Delaware, they're cheaters, and they're upset that their dynasty that they've had for years is crumbling. Because this is the thing about a lot of people in the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party is not hard to infiltrate and to get some sort of position in.
You literally get a position if you get up and go to the bathroom during a meeting. Like they're like, "Hey, that guy, he left, so we're gonna volunteer him for this position." You know, you get stuck with shit because they're like, "We need to fill this spot." Like, no, you really don't. Like, you can leave it vacant, and it'd be much easier to fill a vacancy later than to try to oust someone who took it because they didn't even want it in the first place, and now they're not doing the job.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're someone who can't accomplish anything in real life, you know, holding a position in the Libertarian Party might seem like a really cool thing. And I think that kind of sums up a lot of people who were on the BFC side of things, where, you know, like I move 250,000 pounds, a couple thousand miles or whatever, and I've run crews with 6 men twice my age under me, been in charge of multi-million-dollar jobs. And then, you know, you got other people like Dave Smith, who has an audience of like 100,000 people or whatever. And, you know, Scott Horton, who's done 5,000 interviews with, I mean, so you got people who have actually done shit in their lives, and they're getting involved, and they're like, we want to bring this party somewhere. And that scares all the useless retards who've never accomplished anything.
The big fish in a little pond are very threatened by that because they see bigger fish coming, and they're like, "Wait a second! Like, I'm going to lose
sharks.
I'm going to lose my status in this, you know, little LARPing fucking Game of Thrones world that I've been playing for, you know, however long they've been in there."
Yeah. No, I mean, so I see it going heavily Mises. The only worry I have is like, I mean, I'm a shit poster for sure, and like
I love it.
I like dunking on the losers, but at some point the losers are going to be gone, and I hope that we can get like more serious and you know, start punching up more instead of just. I mean, because like at some point we just have to ignore these people. Some of them aren't going to leave, and they're just going to be here forever, and we really just got to pretend they're not here and just keep doing our thing. So,
well, that's what Michael was saying last week, and he and I had a really long conversation about 2 weeks ago about how there's this group of people who aren't those, you know, useless people who have been, and I don't even want to call all those people useless. I think they just like they were out of their depth a little bit, as it was almost as though the success that we all want to see our ideas have was beyond their reach of what they actually could participate in. Because once it gets beyond a dream, then it's like, now you have to actually do this shit. And it's like, whoa, we were just talking, like we weren't really about that life, you know, like, no, you got to really like put this stuff in. But there are a lot of people who are like kind of neutral to all this stuff. They're like, I don't give a fuck what kind of shit y'all are talking about, to the point of like shit posting and dunking on the people who you're trying to put in their place, or whatever you want to call it. At a certain point, it has to be more of a diplomatic sort of like, look, if you're willing to help, this is where we're going. If you're willing to help, we're more than willing to like work together. But we're not going to sit here and piss in each other's Cheerios about a bunch of bullshit when we have people who are like bombing children all over the world and stealing from us and trying to needle rape everyone across the country and make people lose their jobs, because there's some real fucking shit going down in this country and in this world. And you're fucking worried about like who said whose pronouns right. And I get the fuck out of here. Like we have to move on to like the big fish that are in the fucking pot and work on frying that shit.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit of a two-way street. Like, you have to entertain the parasites. You got to give them, like, you've got to give them a host in order for them to survive.
Right.
So starving them is the best way, you know, like, I mean, you guys probably know, like, I have gotten in trouble, like, going after, I'm like punching up, going after like Gabe Hoff or what's her name, Marianne Williamson, or you know, people like that. Like, I told Marianne Williamson to go fuck herself, and she like saw the comment, and it got thousands of likes and stuff like that. Like, I'd like to see people doing more stuff like that, like
Yeah.
instead of Archie Flowers, because I mean, like whatever. I mean, he's useless. So go after someone who's someone who has power, who's actually being a dick. Like focus more of the energy on that. I think that's better.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings me to one of my questions that I had for you, because you do inject provocative discourse into political conversation. Do you think that helps people understand freedom more, or do you just do it to get them to think of anything?
A little bit of both. Like, I think just thinking in general is good, and it's something people don't like to do. But I like to poke at areas where people don't like to think, because the uncomfortable thoughts are the only ones worth having, really. It's kind of like Jordan Peterson said to whoever that anchor was, like, the search for truth is uncomfortable. So if you can make people uncomfortable by bringing up a question they wouldn't want to ask, I think you push them in other areas too, because if they start thinking about that hard question, they're going to be more prone to think about other hard questions. So yeah, I'm sometimes a bit scathing and a bit sarcastic, but I don't know. Like I think it evokes reactions from people, and you can see who is just going to snap back at me because I dared to say something that would question what their belief system is in some way, or you'll see people who will actually engage me on the content of what I said. So, I mean, and I'm also like, if people come after me real angry and obstinate, like I'll just kind of give it right back to them. So like, I'm going to treat you however you approach me. Like if I start out sarcastic and you come back at me sarcastic, like, okay, cool, because I threw that first stone. But if I just say something and like you come in all angry and like throwing insults at me, like I'm going to be just as belligerent right back to you. This is kind of my philosophy with that stuff.
Yeah, and I think that I've done my share of that as well, and I kind of come from, I guess, the school that I would attribute to Hotep Jesus, in that he doesn't even fuck with the people. This kind of combines your two comments. He doesn't even fuck with the people that are beneath him. Like he told Josh Smith that he's not trying to, you're coming down to their level when you're doing that. But yes, definitely punch up, and punch up hard. Hit them hard, nail them. One of the things that I did when I was working with Adam for the campaign, I went out and hit everybody, all of the, not the libertarians, because that's different. I got Bernie, I got, and did they see me? No, they didn't. But when they're saying something stupid about weed, and I put a meme of Adam Kokesh telling them to go smoke some weed, that's who I'm hitting. I know that these tools in government are not going to answer me. They're not going to pay attention to me, but they have thousands and thousands and thousands of people that might. And if I can get 2 of them, then that's more than me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, see, I have gotten reactions from from Marianne Williamson, but do you guys know who Gabe Hoffman is? Have you ever heard of him before?
I don't know who that is.
I'm not familiar with him. I mean, I know Marianne Williamson. I actually like Marianne Williamson, but like I have a different approach with going after her. Like there's some because there's some stuff I like about her, but then there's also some stuff where she's just completely clueless.
Can you go into that?
Chalk it up to her
Because I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, tell us about Gabe Hoffman, because I'm not familiar at all.
Marianne Williamson, Nicco, ran for president as a Democrat. She's kind of famous for being spiritual. And
she was the one that with the crystals and everything else that the people were.
I was calling her Bill Crystal, like spelled Crystal, because she was she actually literally was retweeting him when we were pulling out of Afghanistan.
Oh my gosh.
Because she was saying that we needed to protect feminism in Afghanistan. I was just like, fucking kidding me? Like, what is wrong with it? And then she was, when I told her to shut the fuck up, I've done it twice. Once on my old account that got banned, and then somehow she didn't block me, but then I did it on this one too, and then she blocked me. But what was she saying? She was saying, like, I prefer a controlled descent to a drop off a cliff. And that is why, or okay, no, she started out by saying like, we need radical change. Incrementalism is not going to get us anywhere. And
then
I said,
promoted.
didn't you vote for Joe Biden? And then she said, yes, because I prefer a controlled descent to a drop off a cliff. So then she's just
the opposite of what you just said.
So then I said, so shut the fuck up then. And it got,
Right.
got a lot of replies. And then the other time I told her to shut the fuck up was after the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. She was saying that this proves that, you know, white supremacy is still, you know, prevalent in the court system or whatever. And so I told her to shut the fuck up again, and she blocked me that time. But
a white dude shot a white dude who was using the N-word. And it's white supremacy.
He was also a pedophile.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, he was a real prize. All three of the guys he shot were real prizes, actually. But Gabe Hoffman is like a super Zionist, like pro-Israel dude. He's the guy who basically got Ryan Dawson banned from everything. Got him banned from Patreon, got him kicked off Twitter, all sorts of stuff. But because
pouring out for Ryan Dawson.
Because I'm friends with Ryan, Gabe Hoffman found out about me. So he runs the account for An Open Secret, which I've still never seen, but it was this documentary about child molesting in Hollywood. But he runs that account, and so I was at Freedom Fest with Clint and Eliza Blue and a bunch of other people, and we took a picture on the roof outside.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So
I remember that. Yeah.
He saw that picture, so he started messaging Eliza Blue like, "You need to stay away from this guy. This guy's a Jew hater. He's a neo-Nazi. He's like just saying all this crazy
just
stuff
because you're
about
not down with the Zionist agenda, like it's like, that makes you like there's
well, Adam's been accused of that shit, dude.
There's so many Jewish people who are who are against that stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, but so she was good enough to tell me that he was saying that, and I don't know how many other people he'd been messaging that. So then I called him out publicly, and he blocked me. This is on my old account, so I got banned, and then I made a new account, and like, I don't know, 2 or 3 days after I made the new account, he had already found me, and he was tweeting out to everyone like, "This guy is, you know, trying to evade his ban. He's a Jew-hating neo-Nazi, blah 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 blah." And I was just like, "Wow, fuck you, dude." So yeah, I've put a hair across a couple big people's asses. It's been I don't know. I mean, I guess I like that has happened. You know, it makes me feel kind of good. But like I've had Twitter APAC come after me hard, and you just have to throw the blocks down because the accusations just get ridiculous. They're just like anti-Semite. It's like, where did I say anything? I didn't even say Jews. I said Israel. I said the IDF. I said Mossad. I said, you know, like these intelligence agencies and state structures around Israel. You know, like, yes, they're Jewish because they're in Israel, but it's like the square and the rectangle thing. Like, not all Jews are Israeli or Zionist or Mossad agents. You know, it's just, I don't know. And I think they actually fuel anti-Semitism by doing that.
Absolutely.
You know, like, because they're blurring the lines by saying, you know, like, if you come after Israel, you come after Jews. So what do you think the fallout of that is going to be? People are going to be like, okay, well, fine, then fuck all of you. You know, like that's
right.
So,
and I wouldn't be surprised if that's intentional either.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
no, that's what they want you to do that. Like,
because they want you to, they want that to be the reaction so that then they can silence any dissent against the Middle East wars and everything else that goes on, that all the other shit that comes out of that whole idea.
Yeah. If they can make you anti-Semitic, then they can call you know, they can call every one of their detractors Nazis if they start saying anti-Jewish stuff. Or so yeah, it's a real dangerous trap. Like, you know, people who go after Israel, they really need to have self-control on what they say, because like if you do end up going down that road, you discredit people who are actually trying to uncover, you know, the evils of the Israeli state, because when you bring in your Holocaust denial bullshit or anti-Semitism, like that, you know, that cheapens the message that people like, you know, Scott Horton and me and Ryan Dawson, people like that are trying to bring. So.
Yeah, it reminds me very similar. I think it was Sonny Johnson. I'm not 100%, but I think it was Sonny that said that that there's actually a second tier to this kind of thing. It's about Black people and racism, but when they continue to like say, you know, there's white supremacy, there's white supremacy, there's white supremacy. That's telling a bunch of Black people that they're less than white people. There's the other side of that. And I this past weekend, she was in an interview with Hotep Jesus, and she said to him then that those people are going to, those children, she feels sorry for them because they're going to be an advantage. They're going to be coming after her kids who are monsters, who are going to be like, fuck you and your supremacy. And they're going to, you know, come at it full force, which is also what they would face if they, and I'm white. That what they would
but it
face
fuels
if they got
that stuff that we saw like on the streets and like the Rittenhouse thing, like all that stuff, it fuels all that divide. Nicco, did you have
I was
question for our esteemed guest?
How has podcasting affected you personally, and like what are your takeaways from it?
Well, I'm used to being like one of the smartest guys in the room until I started podcasting. Now I'm usually one of the dumbest guys in the room, you know, like people in regular life don't know much about any of this stuff. So like if you start talking about the Federal Reserve and artificially low interest rates and why that caused the housing crash, or if you talk about the clean break strategy in Iraq, you know, bringing the pipeline to Haifa and all. I mean, it's like you're speaking Mandarin. They have no idea what you're talking about. Right. But, you know, like when you sit down with Scott Horton for 2 hours and you just ask him to talk about Iran's nuclear program, he can go for 3 hours without notes or without prompts. Like if you just let him go, he's just an encyclopedia. And there's a lot of people like that. I just had James Lindsay on the show the other day. That guy is another one who's just super, super smart. It's been very humbling to be able to have these conversations with all these great minds. And I don't know, I probably know like 40 times what I did when I started doing this 2 years ago. I bet, like, I mean, I've learned more than I've taught, I think, you know, like just being in those conversations. And I'm not afraid to, you know, bring people who are smarter than me on to talk about things. Like Scott's coming on in a couple of days to talk about Ukraine. I know a little bit about that, but not, you know, nearly what he does. So if something topical comes up where I know a guy who's really smart on something, I can bring him on to talk about it.
Right.
So yeah, I'd say it's made me grateful for, you know, all these people who have all this knowledge, and it's been very humbling.
Yeah, we've had very similar experiences as well. If you get a chance to look through our past interviews, and this includes you, great people. And some of them, you know, some of the people you've mentioned, we also have had on the show. Eliza as an example. You know, we've had Maj, we've had Hotep Jesus, we've had Adam, obviously. Spike and lots of these people. And same thing. I used to think, I'm with you. I used to think I know all this shit, and I've read my fair share of stuff, you know. But man, you're right. I've learned so much about that, about, you know, politics and even deeper shit, you know, about religion, about all kinds of stuff from these people, because that's what they do. That's their specific thing that they're good at. One thing I wanted to ask you to kind of transition with that is, what does naturalist capitalist mean? What does that mean to you? I have ideas, but what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's on a few different levels. Something I noticed when I was working is that we elevate the lowest common denominator to the status quo. So, you know, safety regulations are for the most driveling retard you can find on a job site. Like that's what they're designed for. So people who could operate without those much more easily, they have to wear a harness when they're 4 feet in the air now, or they have to.
It's not safe anymore.
You gotta climb up a ladder and then tie off the ladder, so that you can stand on the second step of the ladder. And
so I mean, it's because some idiot fell off a ladder at some point and sued somebody, and so. Hey, guess what?
This shirt that I'm wearing right here is a fire retardant shirt. Where is the label? It's a fire retardant shirt. I have to wear these in every plant that I go into, whether I'm going to be in like an MCC room or not. If I'm going to be anywhere near any electrical equipment or not. I actually got like 3rd-degree burns from like 185-degree water that I was hosing some stuff down with it, and like the hose slipped out. What I was using, it was like a polymer that was real slippery. And I had it on my gloves, and there wasn't any stop.
You had problems holding your hose, Chad?
Yeah. Well, thank God I didn't have it between my legs, because I probably wouldn't have a cock anymore. But anyway, this shit was like, it lit my leg on fire, bro. And like I had like burns on my arm too. The thing was, the burns probably wouldn't have been that bad on my arm if it wasn't for this damn shirt, because this like actually kept the hot liquid on my arm. I'm like pulling my jeans off of my leg and everything. Some of this stuff is just. It's overkill. It's like you said. It's the little sticker on the sunshade that people have in their cars that says "Do not operate the vehicle while you have this on the windshield." It's like,
do not hold charcoal in your hands.
What moron needs to know not to drive with a big thing blocking the windshield? Jesus Christ!
I feel you with the long sleeves. I did power line construction for like 5 or 6 years or whatever, and even when I was digging holes by hand, when the power line's 30 feet over my head. Even though some chick in a bikini and flip-flops can walk under the power line, if I'm digging a hole,
you had to have arc flash protection.
Oh my God. And even if it's like 97 degrees and humid and you're pulling rocks out of the hole or whatever, like it didn't matter. You got to wear all that shit.
And I'm in Louisiana where it's like 100 degrees and 100% humidity in the summer. Like it's insane.
Yeah. New Hampshire, it does get really hot in the summer. Like people, I mean, I've seen it get up to like 105 somewhere there. So I mean, it does get, and it's fucking humid and bugs and everything. So, but yeah, all that to say, we have elevated people to the status quo who should not be there, and then at the same time, we don't let big businesses fail when they should. We ought to let them fail and have the market reset. I actually really love the environment. Like I'm an avid outdoorsman. I've done hiking all over the country, but California has ruined a lot of their forests by preventing controlled burns from happening over the years.
Right.
They tried to like put out all fires for like 150 years, and now when a fire does happen, it just completely destroys everything. So all of these problems are because it's humanity like trying to control a force of nature that they don't have any business trying to control. It's the same thing with foreign policy, like trying to, I mean, I don't even think that's really the goal, but let's say the goal is to try to spread democracy. Like it doesn't work. Like you're not going to change the face of, Islamic states that have been around for thousands of years or whatever, no matter how you split them up.
Because we said that's bad.
Yeah. So all that to say, like, the problem is, nature's trying to run its course in economics, in society, in actual nature, in geopolitics, whatever. And we're always trying to stick our finger in the middle of it and fix it. And I need to stop. Like, I'm pretty Darwinian when it comes to like a lot of how we should be running society at this point. Like the reason we're still wearing masks and we're still social distancing and shit is because like we have this idea of like we can't let anybody die or we can't let anyone get sick or we and it's the the same thing with businesses. Like we can't let any business fail. We got to bail everybody out, whatever. We just need to stop. Just let Darwinianism come in and kind of reset the scales on everything. Like people who are actually qualified for jobs should get them. Businesses who are actually good at what they do should stay in business. And I think, I think capitalism is a force of nature, you know. And so naturalist, capitalist, those two words kind of rhymed, and it kind of goes with that whole theme of like, stop fucking with everything and just let it kind of resettle and go, you know, kind of build from the bottom up. I'm also, you guys probably know, I'm not a religious person, so the naturalist part kind of fit in there as well. But you know, I look at everything in this world as a bottom up structure. Like things kind of build from the bottom, and if they survive, they continue to go up. It's survival of the fittest. It's how capitalism works. It's how ideas work. Like ideas come from the bottom and work their way up. Like if you have a great idea, it should surpass other ideas, and the other ones will fall out of the way. So I'm a free speech advocate. I think, you know, the best way to defeat things like Nazism and communism is actually talk to people about them, you know, instead of shutting them down.
Right. So and let them talk.
Yeah, let them talk. Like sometimes you don't even have to push back. You just say, hey, why don't you describe your philosophy to me, like in depth, and I'm gonna just ask questions, you know. And,
Got to dive into this. Nicco has an acquaintance that we had on who is a communist. Who Chad,
he's more than an acquaintance. I think they went to high school together. They're friends and stuff in high school.
So
Nicco's a closet communist. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Chad quoted the Communist Manifesto to this dude. Quoted it on air, and he's like, "That's not in there."
To be fair, he is a very, 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 very my bad, Cosby. You're a stubborn jackass, and it's like
I like the dude, but
you gotta let stuff go sometimes, fam. Just leave it alone.
Yeah, but I mean that just kind of describes my philosophy. I'm very like, let the best idea win, let the best business win out. Stop trying to prop everything up. Basically, let a bad idea die, let a bad business die. You know.
Yeah, and to that point, like. Not sometimes, because you see this a lot. Like as a parent, I see this a lot with my kids. When I or my wife, it's more often her than it is me. When you try to like steer things in a certain direction, it actually ends up like a lot of times. What I'll do is I'll just be like, "Hey, I'm just telling you, like, I don't think that's going to work out well. You do your thing, but I'm just telling you, I don't think that's going to work out well." If I try to actually like stop it from being done, I end up getting like, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to find a way to do it against your wishes. And then I'm going to fail and find out on my own. And the failure actually ends up being more epic than it would have been if you just let like, oh, you know what? Like I started to push in this direction and the universe pushed back on me. So I'm going to take a step back and reassess and figure out where I went wrong and what I need to do better next time. And so a lot of times, especially in economics and in the environment, some of these things, like I remember they did the thing with paper bags versus plastic bags. We went, paper bags were evil. I work in the pulp and paper industry. So like that was one of those things where they were accusing the people in my industry, even though we have like tree farms all over the place where just like corn or soybeans or anything else, they're planting trees and then harvesting them every 7 to 10 years whenever they're big enough to actually chip and make pulp out of. Well, that's not the same as like going and pillaging the Amazon rainforest or anything like that. Like this is some stuff that's in like rural Louisiana or rural Texas that these people have this land and they farm it just like anything else.
It's a controlled environment.
Yeah. Well, when you try to push things so heavy in another direction, what do? Now we've got like, I don't know how big the plastic tumor that the earth has now, but it's massive. We could probably, and I heard somebody with a really good idea, like if we could collect all that stuff and then start like making it into the filament for 3D printers, it'd be a really great way to recycle that shit. There are some really good, yeah, exactly. There are some really good ways to solve some of these problems. And like you said, that was just some random regular dude who's like, what if we got all that plastic and we used it to make filament to feed 3D printers? Like, that's a damn good idea. And I bet you some, I don't know, Philips or, PPG or whoever isn't going to come up with that idea because that doesn't fit their petroleum chemical narrative.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, question. Can we take a few steps back and can you dive in on why you're an atheist and like when you became one and your path around that?
Yeah, sure. I was raised a pretty hard right evangelical Christian. Went to went to Sunday school, church, all that on Sunday. Prayer meeting Wednesday nights. Went to Christian summer camp, vacation Bible school. Did 5-day clubs. I don't know if you guys know what Child Evangelism Fellowship is, but I was a student in that for evangelizing children. I went to that for a couple years. I'd go to like worldview seminars where you kind of learn like all the biblical history and what you're supposed to do for all the debates and everything. Read the whole Bible. I've read the whole Bible at least once, but parts of it many times. So I was very well versed, and I definitely knew my stuff when it came to the Bible. But I don't know. It was probably when I was like 16 that I started questioning some of the dogma in it. It was when I was 15. It was my last year that I went to Child Evangelism Fellowship training, and the counselor was telling us that all Catholics went to hell, and I was Protestant, and I was asking him, where did you get that? Like, where are you finding that? And he didn't really have a direct answer. He basically just said, well, just pray for your understanding. And whenever I'd start like kind of tapping at the cracks, it would be like, hey, you need to stay away from that. That's the devil tempting you or whatever. So whenever I had questions about things that didn't make sense, he was demonized as, that's Satan whispering in your ear and you need to stay away from that. And you need to like spend more time in the word. You need to pray more or whatever. And I was like, okay, I'm not about this. So I became much more of a universalist eventually over the course of the next few years. So for those who don't know what that means, who are watching, that means like you kind of throw a lot of the dogmatism away and you just believe in the basic scripture that, Jesus came and died for everyone. And most universalists don't even like really believe in hell anymore. It's kind of like the idea that, Jesus died for everyone, so all sins are forgiven or whatever. And I had a counselor who had been a Sunday school teacher in my church, and he committed suicide when I was 18. And he was the one who had been, that doesn't disprove the, what he was teaching at all, but it was just, he really told us as kids, like, you really need to internalize this. This has changed my life. It's turned me into a completely different person. And then he ends up shooting himself. I hear this narrative a lot, especially a lot of libertarians say that like people are looking for a God-shaped hole in their lives, like they don't have God. I've spent most of my life in the church, and I saw that same hole from people who went to church and worshiped God. Like they were not happy either. They had failed marriages. They were cheating on their spouses. They were abusing their kids, whatever. There was this one guy who murdered a woman and then came to a church service. Like, we obviously didn't know at the time, but he came back to church, and then he got arrested, I think a week later. And we found out he had murdered this woman and chopped her into pieces and burned her in his backyard and come to church. So anyone who wants to tell me that dysfunction doesn't exist or is like even less in the religious community, they're just wrong. Like I grew up in the religious community, but anyway, like when I turned 20, when I was 20 and I started traveling across the country in 2015, and I turned 21 in 2015, I started like really questioning what it was I actually believed. Because at this point, I still said I was a Christian. I still said I believed in Jesus, still said I believed in God, but I definitely didn't believe in like 6-day creation anymore. Didn't believe in Noah's Ark. Didn't believe in the Tower of Babel. Didn't believe in Revelation. Like it was just super vague. Like I didn't even know why I still believed any of it. And then I think when I was 22, my brother and I did a trip up to Alaska. I remember we were in Alaska. And I think we're in a parking lot about to climb a mountain, and I've been really mulling over this stuff for months. And I told him, I think I might be an atheist. I'm not really sure. Like, I'm not sure I actually believe any of this, but I'm afraid that I don't want to look into it because I'll find out I don't believe any of it. So it was like I was coming from a place of comfort at this point of calling myself a Christian because it was just what I was so used to. So then I finally said, you know what? I need to be honest with myself, and I need to start really examining this and seeing what do I actually believe. So at this point I was like, do you believe in Jesus? And I was like, okay, no, I don't. Like, I really don't. Like, I believe there could have been a man, Jesus, but I don't believe in the resurrection. I don't believe in any of that. And then it was like, okay, do you believe in God? It's like, that was like the really scary one to like, say no to. I was like, yeah, I think so. Like, I don't know. Like, do I? And I spent like a couple months thinking about this. And I was in this, out in the Alaskan wilderness, seeing all this beauty and everything. So there was a lot of time to really think about it and really try to come up with a conclusion. And then eventually, like toward the end of that trip, when we were getting back to New Hampshire, this was in 2016, I realized, I really don't think I do actually believe in God. And once I actually stepped through that threshold, I kind of had the reaction that I had seen when people were led to Christ, almost like when people were saved, like it was just like this, moment of clarity and like, yes, like that was almost what I went through when I kind of realized, what, I don't believe in any of this. And, like, I don't know, to me, it was sort of like this weight lifting off my shoulders because I like really did believe in hell for a while. Like, I believe billions of people were burning for eternity because that's what I've been told. And for me to come to the realization that was mythology was very, for me, that was very like
freeing.
It was like, it's like, okay, like that's a lot of propaganda that they've used over the years to scare people into submission with the Spanish Inquisition and the Dark Ages and all this stuff, and they've used that to try to control people. So this is all my opinion now, obviously, but it was very freeing to arrive there. And then I went through like this kind of angry atheist phase for like, I don't know, probably like 6 months or something. And then that was just stupid. It was obnoxious. Like, it was just like, okay, this is dumb. And so I still talk about it. And like you pointed out, I make provocative posts occasionally or whatever, but it's not worth arguing about, especially now, like, especially with everything that's going on now. Like 5 years ago, it was a much more interesting conversation to me because we weren't like questioning whether or not people should have basic human rights if they inject a pharmaceutical product into their bodies. Like, so it was a more hypothetical discussion that, just was more, was closer to relevant conversation than it is now. Like now, I really just don't care at all. Like I cared a little bit a few years ago, but I mean, I would rather work with some fundamentalist Muslim who believes that his wife should walk 20 steps behind him or whatever. If he's like against the wars and he's against, like the
locking people up,
apartheid that's going on or whatever. Like if he has wacky religious views that he and his family voluntarily want to follow, okay, whatever. Like I don't care. I think it's weird, but it's not the most important thing anymore. So
for sure, I want to dive in a little bit. First of all, again, you likely don't know us. We are all people of faith, but when I say that, you're thinking Christian. Chad's Catholic. Nicco is.
So Chad's going to hell.
Right. Chad's going to hell.
See, and I experienced the opposite, where like I have people in my family and people who I've gone to church with, who it was like we're the only ones going to heaven, and I'm just like I don't know. I think all of us have a different view of this. I'll let Marcus kind of dig into that because he knows
all dogs go to heaven
a lot.
Right. So Nicco's more of like a spiritualist. He gets into a lot of different stuff. I am a voodoo practicing deist. I believe that God doesn't exist well, I believe that God exists, but he doesn't get massively involved. I believe he has spirits that do that for him. I don't have faith at all. No faith. I have certainty. I am 100% certain because I've had experiences, because I've been a magician for over 25 years, and I know there's a God. That being said, your kind of atheist is absolutely a spiritual thing. I heard it in your voice when you were talking about your appreciation for the environment, for your appreciation for nature. Voltaire said that who was a deist, and I strongly suggest if you haven't read the works of either Voltaire or Thomas Paine, particularly on deism, I strongly suggest them. If you have any doubts about the Bible not being authentic, you just go read Age of Reason by Thomas Paine. He will make it sure that you're 100% certain the Bible's bullshit. So at the end of the day, though, atheists who come with an open mind, to me, God, if he exists, is going to understand your path, because I believe in a loving God. I believe in a God that doesn't want to torture me forever. I believe in a God that that accepts me for my misgivings. And if he wanted me to be 100% sure about this, that, or the other thing, he's all powerful, all knowing. How about he give me some goddamn proof? So at the end of the day, for me,
so you're much more like it's kind of like C.S. Lewis in that idea.
To a degree, yes, but who was an anarchist? So yes, yep. But for me, you're the second atheist that we've had on our show that I'm aware of. And both of you libertarians, both of you very much the kind of atheist that says, I don't know. I don't see any proof of this shit, but you believe whatever the fuck you want. And I can work with that. I can live in that, because to me, my brother-in-law, who's the Seventh-day Adventist preacher, wonderful person. And absolutely amazing. He's a real Christian. Now, I also believe Chad's a real Christian, but
well, thank you.
Yeah, but Aaron to me is the best example of a real Christian. He knows exactly what I believe. He knows exactly how I am, and he loves me anyway. And he
even though you're a piece of shit, I love you too, Marcus. No,
right. And to me, I'm with you that why can't we fight on different fronts? Why are we? I was, for one, again, I practice voodoo, so my religion doesn't tell me I have to convert anybody. In fact, I outright tell people, don't come my way, because it's fucking hard. What I do is
Marcus tell people scary stories so that they stay away.
Right. Don't do the shit that I do. My crazy brain.
Like one time I got thrown across the room by a demon. Don't come to this room.
Don't do this shit. Right. For sure. So at the end of the day, I think that your point that that we have bigger fish to fry. They're murdering folks all over the world over politics. They're encouraging people to enslave themselves on the daily. They are stealing in multi-millions of dollars, billions of dollars from people all over the world. There are bigger fish to fry than what fucking God or no God that you see. And so for me, let's fucking get together and set the world free. You believe in peace, love, and freedom. That's all I need. That's the religion that I practice. Let's do it, and let's move forward and forget all the nonsense.
Yeah, that's basically how I feel.
Yeah. So, Chad, or Nicco, did you want to add anything to what I had to say? Or questions? No? Okay. All right. So where can people find, because it feels like we're kind of wrapping down. Do you guys agree? Because we've covered a lot of fucking ground.
Well, I had another question. I thought you meant a question about the religion stuff. So I was okay. On that. I was going to let Nicco go since he had initially asked that question.
Sure.
Oh no,
my shit was freezing. I don't know if y'all
understand that he takes in but he's been through the ringer, so I know how it is when you're constantly going through religious things, and then you're at a like a moment where you have an epiphany about something that's just like it's either there or isn't. And so, like earlier today, my grandmother was yelling at me because I wasn't sitting down in mass and service. It's not like I don't want to sit down near mass and service. It's just something I don't particularly subscribe to. So, how am I? I have things that I want to work on, and you're stressing yourself over thinking that I might be an atheist, which is opposite of that factor. So, but no, that's I'm fairly sure that everybody who's like an atheist finds a different form of religion if it's not specifically pertaining to God. Have you possibly had something in alignment to that?
I think I'm like a real atheist. Like, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Like, usually people find another religion, but I think, I don't think there's necessarily anything bad about having faith or believing in something like a higher power. I do think religion is bad. Like, I don't think that's ever used in a popular, in a positive light. Like, when something becomes a religion, that is never looked at as a good thing. Like, if you're saying you're turning this into a religion, that's not a compliment. That means you are removing any question of this, or you're removing any criticism of it. You're removing, you're basically removing any spirituality from it too, and you're just turning it into dogma. So I think religion it doesn't have to be about God. Like, I think COVID is a religion at this point, and
sure.
that's
Statism,
not a compliment. Statism is a religion, also not a compliment. So there are things I care a lot about, like liberty, but I think we should strive to try to not turn anything into a religion. I think religiosity is a negative, if that makes sense.
Sure, I do want to comment. One of the things that I am all noticing, and maybe I'm wrong, is that my experience with religion started with Christianity just because of my parents. But I've studied Buddhism, Hinduism, various forms of paganism, deism. You name it. If it's an andy or an ism, I've probably studied it thoroughly. I have about 1,500 books on religion that I've read.
Holy shit.
Right. But most of what I'm hearing is what is typically, frankly, Protestant, Christian, or Islamic, sometimes fundamentalist Judaism. When you're talking Hinduism, or you're talking Buddhism, or you're talking many pagan religions, they don't play with all that bullshit. They're not trying to force shit on nobody. They're they're trying to, like, for instance, I have a lot of Wiccan friends. They're trying to get out naked in the fucking woods and celebrate nature. Woohoo! And by the way, if you get a chance to go to a Wiccan circle, it's a lot of fun, especially if the chicks.
Well, there's a lot of stuff too that's very focused on like enlightenment and like expansion and not just there's some of it that's very internal. Like so to give my, like Marcus told, I'm Catholic, but I'm kind of exploring the idea of something that goes back even more like Orthodox than that. That's more back fundamental, less of the Vatican hierarchy and all that, because I have obviously I have some serious, as everyone should, some serious misgivings about how that hierarchy has conducted itself over centuries, and especially over the last several. But I think of it more in terms of like what Marcus said, like an experience, a relationship, and that there are some things, there are some rituals and some different physical manifestations and some of the stuff that makes us as human beings who operate in a physical and spiritual realm that connect those things together that are very important. And so I'm trying to remain more connected to that and less so to necessarily like who the Pope is and what kind of bullshit he's saying, on Twitter or whatever, you know, when somebody interviews him about whether or not you should get some shit injected into you because he's been bought off by all the fucking corrupt, evil oligarchs around the world. So like that's where it gets. I think a lot of this stuff, like if you go back, like Catholicism versus like the Roman Catholic hierarchy, to me are two very different things. You go back and look at a lot of like teaching, and there's a lot of stuff that's just like it's some good stuff to like help you like do a better job of being a better person. And when you get into some of the other stuff, that's where it becomes like, I think it kind of got co-opted because there's this big organizational structure that human beings seem to be like, I don't know, magnetized to, that like they can't fucking live without somebody telling them what to do. That there's no shortage of people willing to fill that void for people. And those people are generally like evil, corrupt people. And so that's kind of where, like, what I try to think of is like, when I think of God, I'm thinking like, all right, so God to me is an entity who would only want me to be united and to share a relationship with him in the same way that I want to share a relationship with my wife. But if I tell my wife, hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to beat the shit out of you, that's not a really good relationship with me and my wife. It might get me the outcome that, you know, the material outcome that I'm looking for, but the relationship is dead on arrival. And so I think of it more in those terms, that a lot of what I see as like heaven and hell is like, one is union and the other one is we still are getting what we wanted. It's not being forced on us. It's just the lack of that union. So that's kind of where I try to
approach to it too.
Very much so.
I mean, I would put it this way: like, I do not think Jesus was religious. I do think the Pharisees were religious.
Absolutely,
the Pharisees wanted to murder Jesus because he worked on the Sabbath. Like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Because he was healing people on the Sabbath.
Because people were starving or something. You know, like he's feeding the poor and
whatever he was doing. Yeah, and they were like, so then I forget. Then the verse says like, and then they went and plotted to murder him. You know, like,
right.
I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I don't think that is religion. Like, religion is you aren't supposed to be working today, and you must, you know, pay the punishment or whatever.
You go in the bed.
Jesus was hanging out with the hookers and the tax collectors and the scum of the earth, and telling them to give up all their possessions and, you know, pray for their enemies, carry the Roman soldier's backpack an extra mile. Like, none of that is religious at all. That's very different. So I think you can even be a Christian and not be religious. I mean, I like it when people call themselves followers of Jesus instead of Christians. Christianity just brings so much baggage with it, in my opinion. But I know people who have just called themselves Christ followers, and they just try to emulate Jesus, and I see nothing wrong with that. I mean, I disagree with some stuff Jesus said. Like, if someone tries to kill me, I'm gonna murder them first. You know, like, I mean, some stuff on self-defense and stuff we probably wouldn't agree with. And he does actually speak about hell more than he does about heaven. And even though Jesus is kind of painted as like this kind of, you know, just forgiving, just loving person, like, there's a lot of stuff that he says about like, you better watch out for what's coming. I'm going to be returning with a sword, and, you know, I'll be the one to cast you away from me, saying, "Depart from me, I never knew you," like all that shit. So there is some stuff that I'm not a huge fan of with Jesus, but for the most part, like, the way he told us to live, I don't really see much I can disagree with. The other thing I wanted to, what was it? You were making a really good point there that I wanted to parallel with, but I forgot. Sorry, never mind.
me or Marcus or Nicco?
I think you were. I mean, I thought of something I wanted to say that.
I don't know. I was talking about the hierarchy in the Vatican and the. I'm trying to think of what, and like a relationship with God versus a disconnection. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what kind of go through what I went through to see what might spark it.
But I mean, it's all like kind of,
no worries.
You know, like I think that the idea of like punishment, you even touched on it. Like, if I punish someone for not doing what I want them to do. That's what the government does to us, right? Instead of, voluntarily enticing us into doing something, it's like, you do this or we will murder you or throw you in a cage or whatever, so,
not very godly.
I know what I was going to say. So, Marcus, like, you're a hardcore anarchist, but you would probably not deny that some things in the Constitution are good, right? Like some of those ideas
absolutely
are good, like
the principles are good,
right? So I'm that way with the Bible. Like, I do not believe the Bible is absolute truth. I don't believe it's infallible. I think there's some batshit stuff in it, but to throw the whole thing out and act like there's no good messages or good lessons you can learn from it, I think is ridiculous. I think the Bible has some of the most important lessons throughout the history of humanity that we can learn. So atheists who would say like, oh, because I don't believe everything in this, I'm not going to read any of it, I think they're idiots. I mean, I think even if there's some book that's mostly horrible, it can still have something good in it,
for sure.
So I am not one to discard an entire book just because I don't think it's infallible or perfect. So I certainly think that there's a lot of valuable lessons in the Bible.
Sure. And for me, that just shows, okay, one of the things that I find a parallel in the founding fathers, if you will, or the people that fought, and why I'd make a distinction is because most of the people who actually fought the British in the Revolutionary War didn't have a fucking thing to do with setting up a government. And many of them were firmly against it. Patrick Henry, Thomas Paine, many of my heroes from that time. But I'll take any of them. Just to be clear, Hamilton is the biggest snake of the bunch. Take him over these pieces of shit we got right now every day. But right. So, but at the end of the day, we need to get back to the ideas, because it is free thinkers. It is people, it's not a coincidence that a bunch of the people I just named were deists. A lot of them were questioning religion at a time when that was not acceptable. The Ethan Allen, who was actually the most successful general in the Revolutionary War, is a famous deist who believed that God existed, but he didn't have a goddamn thing to do with any of this shit. He just created shit and went, wow, let's see how this works. And so I think that what we're dealing with, and this is all four of us, is we're dealing with people that think about shit deeply. We think about whether you're in that's what brings us, whether you want to call yourself a libertarian, an anarchist, a free, whatever it is, we're all free thinkers. We're thinking about things and we're thinking creatively and trying to figure shit out. But we also don't let our heart be pushed aside either. None of us, all of us feel, I hurt physically when I think about all of the damage that this country has done to people who haven't done a fucking thing and are just sitting at home trying to get through their shitty ass day, and they drop a bomb on their mom and dad. I feel deeply about that. So I think that freedom people that are inspired to freedom, all of these topics are the things that come to mind, because that's what free thinkers think about. And I can appreciate. And when you said, that you represent the blue collar, amen. That's what we fucking need. We don't need pencil pushers. It was not the pencil pushers that, whether I want because I've said before, I don't agree with government. I think that it's all bullshit, but I'd meet somebody at the Constitution. I'd be all right with that. We could just get back to that shit, which we can't, but let's say we could, I'm good. But at the end of the fucking day, and I was driving at a point. The point was that when you're challenging people and when you are making people think, that is good, but it also matters because the people that built this country were not the pencil pushers. They were the people that showed the fuck up to work every goddamn day, put the shit together, worked on the economy, built shit, thought about shit, and made the country great, which is the blue collar heroes. So I appreciate your focus on that. I don't know that I get to it because I'm way more of a fucking intellectual. I'm trying to know all this shit and all that.
Yeah.
But I absolutely think that it is essential what you're doing, and that the way that the truckers across the world are acting right now and talking right now is the flame of liberty we have got to stoke.
Yeah. As far as the truckers go, like I do want to talk about that a little bit. I have like people for the last couple of years, they've asked me like, should we do a trucker strike? Should we do a trucker strike? And I've been against it in the United States. And here's why: because people don't realize like when you shut down the trucks, how quickly people die. Like people at hospitals run out of supplies in like a couple of days. The shelves won't be stocked after a few days. People will start rioting. So it's a real mess. Like if you actually start doing that. But the countries that you named, like Australia, Canada, I mean, Canada, they were having you show papers to make checkpoints to prove to people that you were going to a job that you had to drive to get to, like, or that you were getting necessary supplies or whatever. Like, I mean, they've been absolutely insanely authoritarian. So when you push,
they were always like that though too. Like I've traveled up to Canada, and like if you're like, I made the mistake one time of saying I was going up there for work, and all I was doing was going up to like make a presentation and then come back, and like I had to like get to the point where like they really believed me that I was just going to make a sales presentation and that I wasn't actually going to be like taking someone's job or something like that.
Yeah,
like they wanted to arrest me at customs.
Well, I mean, just like they've wanted like within the country the last couple of years.
Oh, within the country. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like they're showing videos of cops at checkpoints checking people's paperwork to make sure that they had permission.
That's sick.
So when you're already in those types of circumstances, and then they try to push this on you too, I mean, people are going to go without food. But guess what? Like, you push people to the brink, you're going to have consequences. So I don't feel like we're there yet in the United States. Like, I think, you know, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York City and Hawaii are pretty close behind. But most of the country is pretty free, all things considered. So, I mean, if people want to do a convoy or whatever, like, I'm all for it. I don't own my own truck, unfortunately, so that's not my choice to go jump in with it. But yeah, like, don't fuck with truck drivers. You know, like if they really try to, like they were talking about trying to mandate all truckers in the United States have to get the jab. If you do that, you will have, I mean, I'll quit, and you'll have a ton of truck drivers quit. And you think the supply chain crisis is bad right now? Like, just wait. So yeah, I mean, truck driver, they've already done it to the medical field.
Are a lot of truck drivers anti-jab?
Yeah, in the United States, yeah, a lot of them are. I mean, I'm not anti-vax in general, but and like for the most part, I've been like, you know, if you want to get this, whatever, it's your own choice. I still think it's your own choice, but at this point, like I am recommending you don't get your fourth shot. I think that's ridiculous, you know. So like, I mean, at some point, like it's got to be like, okay, what are you doing? Like, yeah, it's your choice, but holy shit.
It's your choice to be stupid, but I don't recommend it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it's never going to end either. That's the thing.
The medical field by, you know, mandating jabs. Thousands of nurses and doctors have quit.
And they've ruined it.
I had surgery in the beginning of the month, and I had to just go for a checkup. I was supposed to go last Friday, and they couldn't do the checkup appointment because there wasn't enough staff at the location to do the checkup, so they had to delay it a week. And then they called me on Thursday, seeing if I could move the date again, or if I can go to a different location because they didn't have enough staff. This is because of the jab mandates. It's not because COVID's, you know, got thousands of people in the hospital. It's because people have quit. And, so if you do that to the trucking industry, just watch out. It's going to get
Yeah, and
But you
I watched.
kind of answered my one of my questions was going to be like, what if the crazy people blame the truckers when they're stuck, you know, and then they start attacking the truckers? Like you're like, no, we're out here, like we're actually fighting for you more than the military is right now to preserve your freedom, and you're going to come and attack us. But you make a good point that like it might not be the best play because it is going to have that sort of immediate impact. But like what I don't know. I was thinking. You said you don't own your own truck, but like, is that something you're moving towards, or like what? Apart from like the politics stuff, and then just even the freedom that driving a truck provides, what are you doing to like kind of free yourself? Because a lot of times people wait for somebody else to, either through politics or something else, and I find that there's a thread that's growing of more and more people working to free themselves and to just not wait on any of that shit to happen.
Yeah, so I've been very smart financially throughout my entire life. I didn't go to college. I was making six figures by the time I was 24. Like I said, I used to run big crews on multi-million-dollar jobs with the job I used to do, which was power line construction. I've been truck driving over the road for about 2 years now. I'm going to be moving back to New Hampshire, and it's not because Utah sucks. Utah's been better than most states, hasn't been bad. But the Free State Project has really turned into something over the last 2 years.
Yeah,
like when I used to live in New Hampshire, I knew what it was, but this was pre-2020, and I'd hear people talk about it a little bit, but it was definitely not at the forefront of the conscience of New Hampshire. The last 2 years have changed that. Like tons of people have moved there. They made it impossible for another lockdown to ever be instated by the governor there. They introduced a bill to secede from the union last week. My friend Jeremy Kaufman just got nominated for U.S. Senate from New Hampshire, and that's not an unwinnable race. So I'm actually going to be voting with my feet by moving back there, just because New Hampshire is really taking a stand against everything.
Good.
Really taking a stand for liberty. And, I'm not crazy about Florida or Texas. Like, I know they've taken a stand against the COVID stuff, but I feel like
stuff.
Especially Florida, like if God forbid a Democrat like beats DeSantis in the next election, like everything they've done just goes out the window because it's all been centralized edicts, that the governor gives to stop everything. Where New Hampshire is really decentralizing. It's got the largest state legislature in the country. There's only like 1.6 million people who live in New Hampshire, something like that, but there's like 400 representatives. It's like one for every single town.
Right.
So I'm going to be moving back there in June. That's how I'm trying to increase my own liberty. I'm going to still drive truck, but I'm probably going to move to it part-time because I'm pretty financially set. I'm going to start trying to support myself with my podcast a little bit more and try to be more involved politically on like Kaufman's campaign. And then I might even run for state house at some point back in New Hampshire.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. And where can people support you? Where can they get, like, if they want to financially support you? I've got your Linktree, your YouTube, and the Twitter account linked below. But if they want to give you money, because I'm all for giving people money. If they want to give you money, where can
give us money too? Damn it! No, I'm just go ahead.
Yeah, the Linktree, you can find my Patreon there. That's all I have right now. I am going to be setting something else up where they won't be taking any of the cut. I'm going to be setting up a website where you can donate to me directly. Nice. But for now, Patreon works, or you can send some super chats on YouTube if you want, but YouTube takes like 50%. So
is it that much?
Whatever it is, a lot. So I just do it on Patreon instead for now. But there will be more coming. Subscribe to me on YouTube, Odyssey. I'm also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and I am on Twitter. If you type in Naturalist Capitalist Podcast on Google, you'll find me. If you do Naturalist Capitalist on YouTube or Odyssey, you'll find me. And then if you just do ReedCoverdale on Twitter, I'm at Reed_Coverdale. You'll find me there. And I don't know. I've already been kicked off of Twitter once. I've tried to diversify. I'm also on like Gab and Float and Instagram and Facebook and Getter. I don't know how much longer I'll be there. That was kind of a joke. I actually was one of the people to expose that as a joke. But I just go to that link tree and you'll see everywhere you can follow me.
Cool. Awesome. Well, real quick before you go, because Nicco has to give our little $5 thing. And then after that, I have a top 5 question for you before you go. So go ahead, Nicco.
No problem.
Hey, everybody, if you decided to stay at the end of the show and learn something about the naturalist capitalist kind of ideology, we would appreciate it if you threw $5, go in your pockets, open up your wallet. If it's dry, it's okay. There's bank accounts. But besides that, it'd be very appreciated if you guys threw $5, join our Patreon, like, subscribe, 2 likes and 2 shares, speed the spread. And please do go look at Reed's content as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, much appreciated, everybody.
Yeah, we actually have our what the fuck is it called? Cash App links down below as well.
Yeah, that's a good way too, Reed, to get it to where you get people can send you money without you having to give a cut to those people. It's bad enough having to give it to the feds, So real quick, so I know you got the beard working now and everything, but there was a long stretch of time where you were just rocking the mustache. So I have this. I wanted to get your top 5 mustached men of all time in your top
5. Well, let's see. Nietzsche is probably number 1. That's pretty hard to beat mustache. John Stossels is pretty good.
Yeah.
Matt Kibbe's is pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Top 5. Wow.
I think you got to.
Joseph Stalin had a pretty stellar stash.
For sure.
One more. I guess ReedCoverdale when I have my mustache.
Hey, there you go. I like it. Maybe you slid yourself into the top 5. I dig.
I do the stash during the summer. Or at least I have the last couple of years. I used to do the beard during the winter and then clean shave in the summer. And the year that I happened to start doing my podcast, I was shaving for the summer and I just didn't do the mustache just for a joke. And then I was like, that actually doesn't look that horrible, so I just kind of went with it and it became a thing.
And then it became a thing. Yeah, exactly.
You're one of the people that can pull off nowadays that can pull off a mustache and not look like Chomo. I had a buddy who will remain nameless. That dude always wore, and I was like, dude, I worry about my kids when you're around. You need to shave that shit right off. So I wanted to thank you for coming on, Reed. This was great. And one of the things I wanted to a quick plug to something else, because I really think that this is important that people look into. I think that what you're talking about with the truckers shutting things down is important. What we have seen over the last 2 years is a complete destruction of our medical system. And if you haven't seen Ron Johnson's full 4 hours on the Senate floor with the people we can't talk about, basically that have other
just doctors and nurses. Just ignore them. Let's just ignore them.
Just the people that
they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Just the guy that invented the RNA technology. That guy. Right. Yeah. But if you haven't checked it out, you should, because many of the things that Reed was talking about when it related to the truckers and shutting the world down is happening to our medical system right now. I wasn't a big fan of our government-controlled medical system now, or before, but it's destroyed now. And that one of the things they said in that I agree with was people are afraid to go to the hospitals now because they are seen as a place of death. And we have got to end this. This has got to stop. And I know that people are saying, well, they're pulling back. It's a temporary victory. We need to keep pressure and make sure this shit never happens again. So I definitely think people should check that out. Again, Reed, it's been great talking with you. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for being out there and doing the shit that you do. As we've said 1,000 times, really appreciate you and all of your work. All right.
Don't forget your paperwork at the gate. So I'm just saying, you know.
Don't forget to grab my wheel chocks and not run them over as I leave.
That's right.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. It was fun.
Oh, very welcome.
Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it very much.
And everybody out there, you ready, Chad?
Yes, sir.
Stay free.
Peace out.